Just a few reminders before we begin. For transparency, all attendees are required to have their first and last name and organization in their display name. Today's session is being recorded. We may use all or part of it in our platforms and publications. We encourage you to get your questions in early, even while the presentation is going on. You may send your questions by typing them in the chat box. When we call on you for your question, we will turn your mic on. Please state your name and organization before asking your question. We have created a Facebook group for all the participants of the Digital Democracy Training Session. This group will serve as a space to share ideas and support each other in the digital democracy initiatives in our own cities. If you haven't already, please join the Facebook group through the link being shared in the chat box. Thank you. To begin today's program, I would like to invite everyone to stand for the Philippine National Anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we start today's program, I want to ask everyone if they have already answered the pre-test which we sent before. Can you please give me a thumbs up if you have? Okay, I can see a few of you have already answered the pre-test. That's great. If you haven't, please answer it now. The link is being shared in your chat box. You can click on it and answer it so that you can receive your certificate at the end of this program. To officially start the program, let me call on Catch Afilada, Senior Policy Officer of the Makati Business Club.
Great, thank you, Geeta, and good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. Welcome to Digital Democracy, Technology for Decision Making and Community Building. This is an initiative of the Makati Business Club and the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung as part of our Digital Democracy Project. So we created the Digital Democracy Project because we wanted to use tech to bring communities together while others use it to tear us apart. And we wanted to help governments talk with their constituents and work together on policies that create jobs. We have so far worked with Pasig, Legazpi, Intramuros Administration, and Iligan to conduct citizen assemblies online. So we started with turning streets into additional space for retail, restaurants, and recreation in Pasig, and to making streets more tourism-friendly in Manila, to helping small businesses in Legazpi and Iligan. Everything that we've learned the past 2 years have been condensed into a series of guidebooks on digital democracy, sharing the lessons that we learned in conducting digital democracy in the middle of the pandemic. So based on these guidebooks, today's activity is designed to empower LGUs to use digital democracy tools to listen to their communities and constituents. By the end of the session 1, tomorrow, you in the room today will be able to conduct your own digital democracy process in your own cities. To conduct the training, we have Dr. Dexter Galban and Dr. Via Roderos of Experto Play Labs, a global advocacy-based and community-driven social enterprise focused on management consultancy and professional and training development. Dr. Galban will be conducting the training today. He serves on the Commission on Population and Development of NEDA and he's a CEO of Experto Play Labs. Dr. Via Roderos will be presenting tomorrow. She's the COO of Experto Play Labs, where she developed a learning and management platform for health, climate, education, and governance. So we look forward to today's discussions and breakout room sessions. To get us started, here's Dr. Dex. Doc?
Great. Hello and good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this wonderful learning event. And once again, this is the Digital Democracy Series of the Makati Business Club, as well as in partnership with Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and powered also by Experto Play Labs. I'm Dr. Dexter Galban from Experto Play Labs, and today we will be focusing on anything and everything that you need in order to get that digital democracy power into your government agency, LGU, or even your own organization. So let's get things started. And today we'll be using a lot of tools that focus on us actually using digital democracy methods to make things more inclusive, interactive, and hopefully even more fun. So let's get to it. Just a quick check. Give me a thumbs up if you can all see my screen. You all see my screen? Great. So this is the Digital Democracy Project, and here we go. All right. So, okay, so again, a couple of house rules for all. Again, please join us here in the Zoom call as much as you can. In case that you get disconnected, please do jump back in. Please also avoid any form of distractions. Try to mute your microphone as much as possible when you are not actively speaking, because we'll be calling on some of you to hopefully engage with us. And of course, please ensure that you're actively listening and engaging during these sessions, because that will allow us to have a more meaningful conversation with one another. All right. So this would be a quick rundown of what would be happening over the next few weeks when it comes to the overall democracy project. And this is part of our session 1. So you are our first batch, and we're very excited to have you here with us. Right. So this particular session was really intended for LGU employees or members of local government and even other national government agencies. But for today, for day 1, we will focus on explaining digital democracy. So we'll break this down into 3 subgroups. So first, we'll talk about the overview of digital democracy. What is digital democracy? And session 2 would focus more on how good governance and e-governance will come into play when it comes to rolling out good digital democracy practices. And of course, session 3 focusing on the actual examples and success stories with regards to digital democracy, right? So just so that we can delve into it clearer, we will have our second day for you to use to create, develop, and hopefully propose after the sessions your proposals regarding digital democracy to your LGU or to your national government agency. So tomorrow we'll have 2 workshops. The first will focus more on implementing digital democracy approaches in your respective work. And at the same time, we'll also be focusing on how you can be guided through the process in creating those from planning to practice. So that would be our flow. Now, we will be using this. So again, if you all have a mobile device or probably any other digital device that you can use apart from the one that you're viewing this from, or maybe even the one that you're using currently, please do log into this particular Mentimeter link. So that's www.menti.com, and then please input the code right here so that you can easily access our very interactive sessions. And we will be using this quite a lot today, just so that we can start collecting data so that you can see your own data, and then we can process how that data has an impact on your understanding of digital democracy, right? So I'm flashing this for another 5 seconds. Again, that's menti.com. You can also use the QR code that's being flashed right now so that you can easily access it from your mobile devices, right? So give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. All right. So I hope you've all logged in because we will now be asking you very quick questions, right? So you see, this is the country context. So we have your autonomous regions, you have your regions, your provinces, or cities and municipalities. So let's jump into the very, very first question. Apart from all of these things, let us first ask all of you here, on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? We're talking about digital democracy. It's probably quite early there in the morning. Sorry, I'm saying there because I'm currently in Switzerland. And this is a way, again, manifesting how the use of digital tools can make connectivity very possible despite being very far away from home. So again, we're having a quick check here on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. How are you feeling today? So we're seeing quite a lot of you feeling quite good. So a lot of 5s, a lot of 4s, and to those who are answering 3s, 2s, and great, no one answered 1. Hopefully, at the end of this session, we can all push you closer to the upper side of that scale and make your day a little bit better, right? So let's jump on to the next main question so that you can learn more about yourselves, right? The next question is, what part of government are you representing? So are you part of regional government? Are you part of provincial? Are you part of the urbanized cities group, or cities in general, or more on the municipality, or maybe the barangay level? What is the characterization of our attendees today? Who are our participants? So we're seeing members from highly urbanized and independent cities and cities. Okay, that's wonderful. I'll give you a couple more moments for you to answer this question, right? So hopefully more will be able to answer, just so that we can have a good grasp of who are part of our session today. Great. So again, we will be using this link. Just leave your device on. Don't close that browser, or probably turn that app off so that we can keep referring to it in just a little bit. Okay, so we can see here, vast majority of our attendees are actually from highly urbanized and or independent cities, and cities in general in this particular call. So hopefully we can use your experiences as jump off points for our discussions later, right? So let's go back to our discussion. So as you can see here, it looks like from what we've seen, you're all here. The highly urbanized independent cities and cities, right? All leading to our coordination with the barangay, and for others, possibly their provinces. Okay, so let's continue. And these are the principles that we adhere to when it comes to good governance, right? For those who are actively part of policy making and the executive section of government, for sure you may have heard some of these things. What does it take to have good governance? Participatory, consensus-oriented, transparent, accountable, responsive, effective, and efficient. So many wonderful characterizations of good governance. But apart from that, of course, what we want to highlight would be what you believe to be very important when it comes to good governance. So I would now like to ask all of you, and yes, we'll be using this quite a lot. In terms of good governance and in terms of digital democracy, can you describe digital democracy, or your understanding of digital democracy, in one word, right? Factoring in all of those things that you have seen regarding good governance. Feel free to type one word. How would you describe digital democracy? So we're seeing some responses here. Digitalization, transparency, online government, right? So let's look for more responses. Let's see the dominant narrative or dominant description. So I'm seeing here that becoming very apparent here, transparency. So let's probably give 5 to 10 seconds more so we can see the themes related to digital democracy and good governance, right? So I showed you the sample descriptions, and in that context, what is digital democracy for you? Okay, So we're seeing here, okay, quite a lot of responses already. So top answer would be transparency and digitalization, online government and technology rapidly catching up, right? Again, no right or wrong answers here. All of us are wanting to learn more about this. So yes, seeing transparency, digitalization, online government, and technology. Thank you for that, right? And with that being said, now let's put it in the context of what I just mentioned, right? So this is digital democracy. Now I would love to know what is the most important characteristic of good governance to you? So again, we're now taking this in the context also of digital democracy, because we can see here, these are the descriptors. For participatory, that means everyone, or particularly all constituents, should have a voice in government. Consensus-oriented, meaning the differing interests are able to reach a broad consensus. Accountable, meaning that the key decision makers are held responsible for all of the major directions that the locality is going to. Transparent, as we saw a while ago, major factor. So all of the up-to-date and relevant information are made readily available. Responsive, meaning all of the processes are done at a reasonable amount of time. Effective and efficient, meaning you're able to produce the results that you want to see, right? Quite important in all of our discussions today. So now let's look at the responses of the team. Wow, okay, so we're seeing the vast majority answering effective and efficient. So really, when you commit to doing something, you actually produce the output. Interesting. Which is a very good reflection of how we want government to function. Kudos to everyone. And I can see here the next top post would be transparent. So the value of being able to see and understand the processes and the information that you need to roll out good decisions for government, right? So very, very good. If we're going to talk about digital democracy, we have to understand what it is, because in general, when we talk about digital democracy, it has a lot of facets. And this is how it goes. Again, I'll flashing this to those who have not yet logged into the Mentimeter account so that you can continue interacting with us, right? So you can just keep that on by your side. So you have governance and e-governance. For a long period of time, we've only known governance, but in the age of digitalization, in the age of us being able to use more tools, we're able to now push for changes in how government works. Because in terms of good governance really wants to ensure that all the political, social, and economic priorities are based on a broad consensus, meaning everyone believes that, or is more inclined to believe that that is the best way to go for their city, their municipality, their LGU in general, and that you're able to listen to all of the voices and factor them into that decision-making process. Now, when it comes to e-governance, you're now integrating a lot of the tools that are now made readily available to make those same things happen, possibly at a broader and more inclusive scale. Because now with everyone having a mobile device, again, I believe we are still considered the social media capital of the world. Now, I think 6th or 7th year in a row. And with so many people in the Philippines having that, we can definitely use it for good governance purposes. And that's quite exciting because e-governance or electronic governance is the use of the digital means by the public administration. So that's all levels. To exercise the functions of government, to deliver public service, and to unify how we do processes as a whole. So you can do that from using your information systems to sending out information or notifications of new projects and programs that they can come into, collect data. This is something that we will definitely emphasize in this training. Collecting data is very important in order for you to practice good e-governance, because that can spell the difference in terms of the successes of projects and how reflective your policies and programs are to the needs of others within your locality. And plus, I believe some have even used e-payment tools to make the business processes in government smoother, and even the online portals for applications of permits. All of these just quick examples of governance and e-governance, right? So this is a snapshot of how our country is currently performing in contrast to our peer neighbors when it comes to e-government readiness. So we have this scale called the e-government readiness index, or the EGDI. This is a composite indicator that uses a lot of factors to measure the readiness and the capacity, not just the readiness, because you may feel like you're ready, but the capacity might not be there, or the opposite side, right? Of national institutions to use information and communications technologies to deliver public services, right? And LGUs can use this as probably a metric of how you are right now. So as of the moment, our team is collecting a lot of the data that you sent through your pre-test in order for us to give you a snapshot as to how maybe your city and or locality is performing vis-a-vis the, your peers in government, right? So as you can see here, Philippines has been steadily growing in terms of the index. If you look to your left, right, you have your scale, your EGDI values from low, middle, high, and very high. So as of 2020, we are currently in the high segment. And coming from the private sector and also from government, I'm quite happy to see this number because it just goes to show that the Philippines is moving towards good adoption of these tools. And this is coming from someone with the lens of the startup world. The Philippines in general is considered as an early adopter kind of country, wherein the Philippines is readily able to accept new developments in technologies, new tools, new apps, new platforms, if, again, the big if, properly facilitated by government and given access to through their devices and probably through the information disseminated through them. So great. So we see here the Philippines currently in this particular segment. So let's try to jump into our Mentimeter again. Let's try to ask, oh yeah, before I forget, and this is part of our retention question. I showed you a while ago the characteristics of good governance, and this is part of our way to ensure that you're all remembering. So a bit of time has passed. Can you still remember at least 4 characteristics of good governance? So please feel free to write your answers here, just so that we can check if you were able to remember the characteristics. So again, just plug them in. So we'll see which characteristic stands out the most when it comes to memory recall, right? So we'll give you probably 5 to 10 seconds. Great. So all of the responses are coming in. Okay, so which governance characteristic or good governance characteristic stuck the most? Like of all of them, there are 8, right? I'm making you name 4. So maybe we'll see here which stands out as probably the first in mind good governance characteristic, right? So we're seeing a couple of responses coming in. Probably we'll give you 5 to 10 seconds more. Okay. Let's give you a few more moments. Oh, it looks like there is a tight race as to what would be the top factor. Okay, so we're seeing here. Okay, so probably 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it looks like there is a relatively, probably a 3 or 4-way tie for transparent. Okay, so transparent and transparency, I think so that would be bundled together. Transparent and transparency. Accountability and responsiveness. Very interesting responses. Again, thank you for that. So it looks like you were able to name quite a significant number of the 8, right? We have here effectivity or being effective and efficient. Participative, we've noted here. We've also seen consensus-oriented. Very good. Great. So we'll jump into that a little bit more later. So my next question actually is this. And this one, I literally just showed you a few moments ago, right? So what does an EGDI score of 0.5 to 0.74 mean? So does it mean that the readiness of the LGU is low? Is it fair? Is it high? Is it very high? Right? Very quick check. We have a few moments. So we're trying to make our sessions very interactive so that you're always on your toes and always very ready to engage. Okay. So here, okay, quite a lot. We're able to get it. So 0.5 to 0.74 score in EGDI means that the readiness of the LGU is high. So we're hoping to hit that very high segment soon, and hopefully we'll be able to help you assess your LGUs as to what your score would be when it comes to this. Why? Because when it comes to EGDI, and I'll just keep flashing this first, there are actually a lot of factors that are looked into. First would be your telecommunication and infrastructure index, telecommunications in general. So that would be your number of internet users, mobile subscribers, etc. Then of course your human capital. So telecommunications, then human capital. So that would be your literacy rate, your expected years of schooling. So the technology factor and the human factor. And then the third factor is the online service index, or OSI, which is the measure of the government's capability and willingness to provide services and communicate with its citizens using these new systems. So if you notice, there's the telecommunication, how ready is your tech? And then you have your human capital, how ready are your people? But the unifying factor for that one, I think, would be our online service index, wherein how ready is government or how willing is government, that would be you as the leaders, LGU leaders, to actually adopt these tools and roll them out. So those three things will spell out the success or that score of your EGDI, all right? So let's jump back into our discussion, okay? So here we go. So again, to those who have not yet joined, please feel free to join us through the Mentimeter link right here. Okay, so let's jump right back into here. As mentioned a while ago, there have been pilot programs that have been launched prior, and these focused, of course, on digital democracy in the following areas. So as mentioned, we have the city of Pasig, the Intramuros administration, the city of Iligan, and the city of Legazpi. So hopefully, your LGUs would be very much willing to probably collaborate with MBC, KAS, and hopefully also Experto Play Labs in rolling out your digital democracy efforts in the future, right? So let's jump into more discussions. So we have here a bunch of images, and they're considered the stakeholders that you need to consult when it comes to how you're going to roll out your programs. And they are quite important because they will spell the success of your data collection and whether or not you're actually fully representing the people that you want to represent. Okay, so I'll give you a quick snapshot of this. First would be this one in blue would be a representation of your public authorities or government in general. Because even if you are part of government, if you're an LGU, you definitely also confer and concur with your fellow LGUs and national government agencies. And as a member of the Board of Commissioners of POPCOM, I love it when I see LGUs collaborating with us and also collaborating with each other because that highlights the capacity of that LGU to learn more. Then you have here in red your civil society organizations, your CSOs. So they're part of the both formal and informal segments of society that are organizing, community-driven by citizens linked by common interests, right? And they have particular advocacies that they champion, and they have a lot of capacity when it comes to mobilization. They can move people, these CSOs, right? And then you have here in a bit of a teal would be the private sector, mostly focusing mainly on the businesses, right? Businesses. And they are primarily concerned, of course, for economic growth and development. Then you have here the one with the world in its hand, our NGOs, particularly our nonprofits or non-government organizations that are independent from government, but they work well with each other and at the same time also are pushing for advocacies in a relatively more formalized form. Some of them are actually going to be beneficiaries of digital democracy tools as well, because they have to employ that to better manage the data that they gather as part of those organizations. Then, of course, you have here very much of a giveaway, the academe, our schools, universities, and of course, I believe we have members of media also as part of this call who are also very much willing to understand the role of communication or mass communication in the rollout of digital democracy. So let's jump back into Mentimeter again. And again, we love collecting data that is relevant to you and so that we can show you our results immediately. So let's look into it right now. So, but my question is to our participants today, again, no right or wrong answer here. Which stakeholder do you consult with the most, particularly your LGU or government agency? Which do you consult with the most? Which among the following? So is it government, fellow government agencies, more of media, or more maybe CSOs? Or do you love talking to businesses, mga profits, or parts of the academic schools, etc.? So which is your maybe go-to? Like if you want to have a quick public consultation, who do you tap? Or when you want to get immediate feedback regarding a government program, who do you tap? Okay, wow, very interesting here. Because remember, when we started this session, a vast majority of you are from highly industrialized cities or cities in general. And your go-to stakeholder consultations would be also government. I see here. So probably your barangays, probably the community leaders, or probably for some in the provinces, your provincial leaders as well. But I'm very happy to see here that quite a number also indicated civil society organizations, because that would be a good signal for participatory governance, something that are also pushing here. Right, thank you very much for that. So this is very interesting data, and I hope MBC is taking a quick look at the information that we're collecting from our participants today, right? So actually I have another one. And this question is for all of you to reflect upon. So why is it important to identify all the relevant stakeholders? Because I know that you have a go-to. That would be government for quite a lot of you, and for some CSOs. But why is it still important to identify all the relevant stakeholders, particularly when it comes to digital democracy, right? So we're seeing quite a lot of responses already, and great. So okay, this is great because yes, we're seeing a lot of responses here. We'll probably give you about 5 seconds more to complete it. Right? Great. So we got some responses. First, to get the various stakeholders in the ecosystem involved in the process. So you really pull them in, correct? Then we have here the second highest response, because this leads to more accurate and relevant and effective insights, right? So it's not just done for the purposes of getting a response from the public. No, you want your data, you want your answers to be really, truly be representative, right? Right now, the heat of election season, we see a lot of surveys being done around. And one of the first questions that people would ask would be, how did they collect the data? Is it the proper way? Or is it truly representative of the Philippines? Same goes when it comes to digital democracy in the context of policymaking and program development. You want that your data is representative of what you're actually collecting. So we see here a vast majority said all of the above. So one that was not fully selected by itself would be because having a well-represented citizen assembly allows the government to collect rich and encompassing insights. That's also true. So actually our answer here would be all of the above, but I can understand why there are some selected key segments or key aspects of the value of collecting data from stakeholders. So thank you very much for your responses, right? So let's jump into it a little bit more. Okay. Right. So again, to those who have not been able to join, just flashing this again. Hopefully you can join us. So we actually saw the number count increase. So hopefully you can join us. I'll flash this for about 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So we hope to have even more responses for our next questions. Okay. So in general, there are a lot of policies that we can actually roll out and a lot of mechanisms for us to push for digital democracy. So the first one that you can see here would be the tools. We have to select tools that are simple. Again, they're very simple, easy to use, and they make life much easier for our target participants. Because if you require our constituents to code or probably have vast knowledge in tech in order to participate, that's going to be very difficult and you probably won't get the numbers that you're looking for. The second here would be feedback, particularly closing the feedback loop. I would love to get a quick vibe from the participants here. We'll choose something that's a bit different. Can you give me a thumbs up if there are times wherein you don't know when to stop asking for everyone's insights or opinions before you create a policy? Can you give me a thumbs up? Has that ever happened to you or your LGU? As in, you continuously collect data nonstop, wherein you don't know when it would end because somehow you would need to keep collecting data. All right, so I only saw about 2 or 3 that the thumbs up. Okay, so maybe 4 now. So that's a good indicator that government right now, your LGUs, are employing currently a mechanism that closes the feedback loop effectively. Because for some, they would keep it so open-ended that they don't know when to stop collecting data. And that's very important for digital democracy because we need to have a plan created from the responses of the public and translate it immediately, right? Because at the same time, we also have to keep them enthusiastic. So there really has this time element that would be important for us to push for. And that's why having your very active social media pages online would be key in keeping our constituents engaged. Now, the third thing that you can see here would be your tokens, your certificates and tokens of appreciation. So if available, small tokens may be given to participants to show appreciation. It can be in the form of probably some incentives. One good example that I saw that was rolled out, especially during the start of the pandemic, was in the way that they collected data in order for you to gain additional benefits or probably financial assistance from government. All you had to do was fill up a form. And that was a way for them to bring in more data to government and analyze the needs, or at least characterize the citizens of that LGU, particularly that would be the LGU of Pasig City. And I think that was a good way to trigger good representation of digital democracy. So again, if possible, it can be given to participants to show appreciation for their participation. For some, they would give load. For some, they would give incentives or discounts or probably freebies or probably gift packs. It can be anything and everything that your LGU would prefer, but that would be very helpful in giving them the incentive to participate. And then the last would be a good command of media, particularly your policy towards the use of social media. Again, we are, I believe, that for the 6th or 7th year in a row, the social media capital of the world, right? We're actually beating out the global average when it comes to the use of e-services. Imagine, we're beating out the world when it comes to the use of e-services, at least for those who are connected to the internet. So it means that the government really has this huge gaping opportunity to capitalize on that, right? So having very active social media pages can actually make your approach more relatable to the public, right? and even the accounts of your public officials or probably select offices of your government would be key. Wherein I remember quite a few years back, wherein we would all like and follow a particular LGU disaster Twitter account in order for us to find out if we had classes or not. So something similar to that, we're in the use of social media representing your government agency or department or office can have a huge impact on how people are able to send and or receive information, right? And let's jump into it a little bit more. Okay, so let's jump back into Mentimeter and I'll have a quick check regarding your thoughts. So what policy is most prominently used by your agency or LGU? So do you primarily focus more on the tools, more on the feedback, just closing the loop, right? Just simple updates on social media and encourage them to participate. Hey, everyone, please participate in our survey, participate in our call, or do you provide the incentives? Or really a lot of maybe ads or possibly high profile engagements on social media. So what is your most commonly used policy, right? Great. So we're seeing here, let's give them about 5 seconds more. Hopefully more will be able to respond this time. So we're seeing the uptick number. So looks like there is a runaway winner. That would be feedback. And again, that was reflected by the way you answered my previous question, that the fact that your LGUs, your agencies, are able to effectively close the loop and able to show to the general public that their inputs are being valued, probably also with an 8-time element. That is a good signal. So interestingly, no one uses tokens, at least for the members of this call. So no incentives when it comes to either certificates, food, cash, etc. Not a lot of you are using that, or if at all. So it's good and interesting to see that a lot are now delving into the media side, right? Not just policies on using simple tools, but really a social media policy. In fact, that's something that even the national government is actively working on right now. On my part, my commission is now designing a more robust social media policy in order to hit our target demographic better. So that is a good signal. So kudos to your LGUs for having that. Okay, but a quick reminder regarding the notion of perverse incentive. While providing incentive, whether it in the terms of the way you provide them with the feedback or social media or even the use of tokens, it's important for them or to remind them that they should attend and participate in these initiatives for the right reasons, right? Because we want them to really come in to share and not just be there for the extra kudo, the pat on the back, or even the incentives or the tokens that are part of it. Okay, so let's jump back into our discussion. So everyone's doing well thus far. We are now about 40 minutes into our training and discussion, and hopefully you're all still having a wonderful learning experience. So now that you've discussed, or at least you've heard, I've discussed and you've learned more about the policies, the general policies that can be rolled out. Let's look at the value of, for example, of e-training, right? So these are your digital tools and platforms that can be used to amplify digital democracy. So e-training or electronic training are initiatives by public authorities and other actors. Let's see your partners, such as MVC and even KAS, that allows us to train elected representatives, politicians, civil servants in the use of digital democracy. So this can be used and expanded in order to hit more of our target demographic. And they can be initiated whether by government or the private sector, depending on the topics and the trainings. So right now, you are all part of an e-training program. All of us are in a shared online meeting event trying to learn more about digital democracy. And let's look at the process. Let's look at what's happening right now. So we first had to identify key topics and objectives for training. So these are the key questions that you would like to ask. And I would love for all of you to take a snapshot of this so that it would be very easy for you to probably facilitate your brainstorming meetings and sessions in the future. Because here, when you identify key topics and objectives for training, you want to ask, of course, the questions are written here. What do we hope to achieve? What's the end goal, right? What are our key indicators? And this one has to be very specific because typically you would want to have numbers attached to that, not just simply improve the well-being of or improve the responsiveness. No, you have to add in the metrics. What by what percent increase? By what percent improvement, right? And of course, what are the relevant topics to be discussed? Okay. And for us, for the purposes of this endeavor, the key topic would be digital democracy, right? And we move on to the next level, which is identifying the target participants of the training. Because you can have a wonderful topic, but if it's aimed at the wrong people, they would be unable to maximize the use of it or even possibly appreciate it, right? If it's not meant for them, it's not structured for them, then it might be very difficult for you to achieve the outcome that you want to have. So you should ask who should attend the training and what do we hope or what do you hope that they will take away after the learning session. So for us, in the context of teaching digital democracy, our prime target would be, of course, local government units, our public servants, because they have a key role in shaping public behavior, right? And how we're able to collect data and create programs for the public. And hopefully, you would be able to go home with more knowledge regarding digital democracy. And I do hope all of you would be present and available for our workshop tomorrow because our end goal is so that you can go back to your LGU after the training or your national government agency and have a proposal ready to go, or probably just have a bit more refinement to go through, and then it's ready to go, particularly focusing on digital democracy. So let's have that as something to be excited about for tomorrow, right? And then let's look into the next, which would be training and evaluation results. How will we deliver the training? Is it through Zoom? Is it through hybrid, wherein there's a virtual and there's an in-person component? And then what tools or platforms do we use? Do we just purely use Zoom, or do we do it the way that this training is currently being done, wherein there's a hybrid use of just the presentation and a lot of the selection tools we're using, from Mentimeter to Kahoot to Jamboard, which you'll be using later, and we'll be orienting you on how that goes later, okay? And of course, evaluation options, tests, quizzes, sharing insights, written reports. It can be through the form of a word map, like how we started the day, through multiple choice questions, and we'll get to that a bit in a little while, right? So, the truth of the matter is, digital democracy is powered by data, right? Digital democracy is powered by data. And one of the things that we want to highlight, and probably as a key takeaway here, is that digital democracy as a general term, when using ICT to enhance the democratic process, is something that we are actively espousing because it's similar to citizen consultation process, only that we're using new tools. So same thing, but with new tools. And a major takeaway for this one is that we have to be clear, okay? Digital democracy initiatives do not, again, digital democracy initiatives do not intend to replace face-to-face consultations. Of course, during the pandemic, we've all gotten used to using digital tools for our everyday needs. Use your phone to grab food, to grab clothes, to probably shop online, etc. But as we continue now to open up, lessen the restrictions, and have a bit more face-to-face interaction, there is now that component that can be factored in. But again, digital democracy initiatives do not intend to replace face-to-face consultations. What it hopes to do is to actually supplement and strengthen the consultation process. More so to see if there's any discrepancy, or maybe the way that the samples were or sampling group has been put together might have some incongruence, and just to probably affirm the direction that government is going into. So again, digital democracy is really powered by data. And the truth of the matter is, it is a good supplement for the offline consultations that I hope you continue to do right now, especially with the restrictions letting up. And one of the things that we can probably assist you with is the fact that digital democracy is enabled by a plan, and a plan is actually a framework that we can present to you today. It's one of the many frameworks that MBC has espoused and actually continues to develop. We are transitioning also, and we'll be presenting hopefully through a supplementary email and or content briefing to you the 6 steps in getting or achieving digital democracy and having it rolled out in your LGU. Okay, so for this one, for the purposes of this training, we'll use the framework A plan. Okay, so let's jump into it. So A plan means very witty, right? You need a plan in order to roll out digital democracy. So A plan is actually a framework that says assess, prepare, listen, act, and then again, new plan. Okay, so let's look into it. So first is assess. The very first thing that we need to do is assess. We have to understand the landscape. Okay, we have to first know this local leader, or do local leaders support these kinds of initiatives, and do they have enough leeway in terms of budget, infrastructure that can actually roll out the program? Do they have a team, a dedicated team that's knowledgeable about digital democracy, and can they roll it out? And do they have anything in particular that they want to use it for? So at the end of this session, when your local government unit asks, do we have people that can champion digital democracy in our locality? You, all of you in this call right now, are those representatives, and you will hold the key as to whether or not your LGU will be able to roll out a digital democracy initiative or plan, right? And then of course, we have to jump into the next part, which is understanding the components. Let's look at the major components here. You have to answer the following questions. So why? Why do we have to have a consultation? What is the significance of the topic at hand? I hope you can all take a snapshot of this, because these would again be very good jump off questions for your future consultations. So they're typical WH questions, but they're broken down so that you'll be able to see what you need to ask and what you need to look into when crafting your policy. So of course, from the whys, you go to the who's, your target stakeholders, as mentioned, your target respondents. There's actually a science behind the proper way to sample a population group. And the recommendation typically, at least when it comes to community organizing, you have to at least hit 60 to 70% for it to be quite representative of your target demographic. And having that in face-to-face interaction might be a bit difficult and taxing on government's part. So you might want to tweak it depending on your approach. You can do it by locality, maybe by barangay, by area group, etc. And then you have to jump into your rules. What's the general rule of thumb when you're collecting this kind of data, as well as what you want to achieve. And then you have to identify what you want to ask, right? And eventually how you're going to roll it out. So I'll give you 5 seconds to hopefully take a screenshot of this. Don't worry, we have a learning briefer that has been sent, or if it has not yet been sent, we'll be sending to you in just a while, because we want to ensure that you're able to take away a lot of the good from this session. Okay. And then of course, when it comes to the how, we want to look into how will the consultation will be held, what's the capacity, amongst others. So again, probably 5 seconds for you to look into it a little bit more. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's continue. So again, going back to the framework of a plan, let's now look into the preparation. You now have to consult with your stakeholders. Very, very important, right? And the thing about this is that the way that you consult will have a huge impact on whether or not they would be responding to you. Because when you are preparing, you are able to somehow map out all the key objectives of that consultation, the target stakeholders, the tools to be used, etc. So again, all of the WH questions that we had a while ago as part of that. So your two-part system. Then let's look into being able to listen to your constituents. Yeah, this is for the L. So listen, sorry, this is actually listen. You listen to your constituents. So it's a graphical error. So you have to listen to the constituents in order for you to get the right responses as well. So it's recommended to conduct an online citizen assembly, um, probably to complement an in-person citizen assembly to explain the objectives of your feedback collection, and then probably launch the survey towards their preferred platforms. Okay, I'll be sharing with you some information that was that's based on a study that I've conducted with my government agency, and from what we were able to do after an extensive research consultation, it appears that at least within the context of the Philippines, Facebook is still king. The vast majority of Filipinos are still using Facebook, followed by I believe is YouTube, and then TikTok, at least for the younger generation, right? Um, okay,
So,
then
Doc Dex, sorry,
there's
just talking about your earlier paper. So you mentioned that you had done some consultations before. In the Popcom, what kind of consultation did you guys do, and how did you listen to your constituents?
okay. So we did two. We first had a consultation about how people would like to be consulted. It's very interesting as well because we wanted to find out um, and we wanted to find out how we would be able to somehow reach them better in terms of education and in terms of awareness about our programs. So we conducted the digital survey, and we were able to map out also their preferences, not only in terms of um, the channel or the modality, but also in terms of content. So all of these things would matter and will play a huge role into how you're able to prioritize your budgets and at the same time power initiatives. So for us, we were able to distinctly see, okay, it looks like Facebook is still king, probably followed by TikTok and YouTube, and probably they have this higher preference towards shorter videos in contrast to long webinars, in contrast to just still photos or text. And it's very interesting to see that, and hopefully we'll be able to share more of that with you. So we'll just go through this before we have our very short break, and
Yes, thank
let's
you.
complete yeah, let's have a very quick wrap up of our A plan. So again, we have now we have act, which is to identify the next steps. So again, very important that you mentioned a while ago to close the feedback loop to identify the next step. So it looks like you're all good at that. You're not, you didn't give me a thumbs up a while ago when I asked if you were unsure when to close it. So good that you know when to close the loop. And then, of course, you have to have your new plan, right? So you continue the process. It's a never-ending process of process improvement. Great. So with that being said, I think now would be a good time to take a quick break. Probably we can take a 5 to 10 minute break as will be permitted by our team from MBC. And we'll get back to you in just a short while. So we'll see you right after this. Right, so we'll be taking a very short break. Again, while you're taking a quick break, please feel free to grab some coffee to have a quick bite if you haven't had breakfast yet, and or probably if you want to have an early lunch. And at the same time, if you are interested in joining, and I hope you will all be joining the Facebook group that's been shared here in the chat box of the call. So for all the participants. So I believe if MBC has some videos that they'd like to share, um, we'll hope to share them with you in just a bit. See you all in a few minutes.
Welcome back to all of our participants. I hope we had a good bio break. I think we're just waiting for Doc Dex to come back. But please do let us know in the comments how you are, how you're feeling. Here he is.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful break. You were able to stretch out your legs and were able to hopefully grab something to bite or probably drink a bit of water, right? So before we continue, we have seen a lot of responses from you using our Mentimeter. So a lot of our digital democracy tools already being used here. But with that being said, I would like to ask a couple of questions from our participants today. Again, you don't only need to use our digital tools, but also really have to hear from our constituents. So I would love to ask, to those who are able to answer, let's try to go back here, some of your responses. To those who were able to answer that they close their feedback loop, etc. How do you listen to your constituents right now, right? I'd love for our participants to let us know. How do you currently listen to your constituents, sorry, right now? What do you do? Do you also do it via Zoom call? Do you do them in another form? So hopefully we can get some responses from our participants today. Please do let me know. We have here, okay, so we have some hands raised. Great. So from the Office of the City Mayor, Sarah Mariano. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, sir.
Morning,
Hello, good
Sarah.
morning.
Good morning. Yes. Actually, here in our office, some clients tend to really do follow-ups. So I think they're more convinced if they try to do follow-ups face-to-face. So some clients try to call our landline, or most of the time, they just visit us and they make a letter or like a sample request, and then they try to give us a copy of that. So that's how we talk to our constituents.
Oh, so very probably emphasizing on the face-to-face interactions and the in-person
Yes.
feedback, right? So
Mhm.
great. So I think what would be a good starting point for us to explore ways to complement that with digital democracy tools, yet at the same time not lose that good face-to-face interaction, because as you mentioned, it's their preferred way
Yeah,
of giving
exactly.
feedback. Great.
Mhm.
So this is a good example of how we should always take into account the gradual adoption of a particular tool or approach, because they have to be done in a way that it's contextualized. So thank you very much for that. We also received here from the LGU of Legazpi City, from Sir Joseph Esplana, Zoom meetings, face-to-face meetings, and client interaction. So anything else that you would love to share with us? How do you currently conduct your consultations? How do you listen to your team? Probably we can hear from one more, if
Yeah,
any.
Mr. Esplana, if you want to share a bit more about that live, maybe we could unmute
Yes,
you.
please.
We actually worked with Legazpi before, so we're quite excited to hear about
Yes.
your feedback.
Yeah, this would be a good way to look into our somehow feedback of the previous pilot. So yes, sir.
Yes, pleasant morning to all, sir. As mentioned in
Yes, sir.
our chat box, we do already face to face, especially those like a very example is our office being the implementer of the local zoning ordinance. Usually, clients that are sent communications denying their application wants to directly talk to us, not through the cell phone
So
or not through the telephone that we have here that we are using. Rather, they come to the office and talk to us. Although in our local process, we are only in the back room of the total processes of the issuance of locational clearances. But still, the clients come to our office. But we have a procedure. Because of the pandemic, we have a ante room where we meet our clients.
Great.
And
there's a
usually
digital
our
component.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Meetings,
our development council meetings with the barangays and the CSOs, NGOs, we do it via Zoom. But there is an option also that they can attend the face-to-face. We have a very big space in Legazpi City. We call it Legazpi Convention Center. We can accommodate 3,000. So we have a big area where we can hold face-to-face already.
Great. So,
Thank you.
So, Sir Joseph, really hybrid. So you're now going to be adopting both virtual and in-person
Yes, sir.
consultations more. Great, thank you. I see a couple of more hands raised from the Quezon City LGU. First, maybe we can hear from Ma'am Berlin Tinonas, then followed by Sir Engelbert Apostol. Yes,
Hello,
ma'am.
everyone. Good morning. I am Berlin. I work at the Office of the City Administrator, and most times we handle complaints from our clients. So right now we have the Quezon City Helpline 122. So our clients would call to that local number, and then usually nagfa-follow up or nagtatanong bakit ang tagal-tagal po ng proseso and what they can do moving forward so that ma-expedite yung process. And from that, we also have our social media pages. We are actually just recently launched Project TikTok also. I think ang napansin namin dito sa Quezon City, since we handle hundreds of thousands of clients on daily basis, people as much as they can try to utilize our online services. So may e-services account ang mga Quezon City citizens, and then from there you can track yung mga in-applyan nila na services. So I think dito naman, mas iniiwasan naman ng mga tao yung face-to-face kung pwede, due to the pandemic, as well as to save time, because lining up could save them a lot of hours during their day. So from that, we receive their complaints or their follow-ups through our emailing system, and then we forward it to the respective departments. For example, if it's regarding health, if it's about traffic or other barangay concerns, sa amin nila i-course yung kanilang complaint, and then we do the endorsement, sometimes personally or also online with the respective departments of Quezon City. That's it.
Wow, that's so great to hear. I've personally experienced using the e-services of Quezon City, and very efficient and really a good way to roll it out, and really happy to hear more feedback about the use of technology now when it comes to doing your business processes. Thank you for that.
Thank
Now
you
let's hear from
very
Sir
much.
Engelbert.
Yeah, just like to echo what Berlin said, no? So we are heavily into social media these days, no? Aside from yung aming FB page, no? On a regular basis sa email naman, we receive about 3 to 4 messages per minute, no? At the height ng pandemic, no? And then now it's about 100 or 50 to 100 per day, no? Some are inquiries, some are consultations, some are raising issues like we do have a free city bus service. Maraming ruta yon. Some are requesting additional routes. Some are requesting for longer hours of operation. No, so napaka-effective ng online sa amin these days. Email, the FB messages, no. Even people who would like to get vaccinated, they message us directly. Apart from what Berlin said, that that helpline 122. Yung aming 122 number, they also message us directly, no, sa aming FB page, who now has about 800 plus thousand, no, followers, no? So medyo naka head start na kami doon sa consultation part through aming FB page, no? Kasi every time that we do any project, no, for example, yesterday we posted benefits that solo parents can have, no, para sa Quezon City. So immediately all the questions were raised, no, paano kung ganito po ako, solo parent na ba, kung wala na akong asawa, etc. etc. All the questions no, nire-raise nila doon. So I think it's an effective way, no? So we can gauge how our people are seeing yung mga government projects.
Thank you very much, Sir Engelbert. And actually, Sir Engelbert and I actually go way back. I've known him before. He was with the Quezon City government, and he actually has a very strong background when it comes to media in general. So, Sir Engelbert, I'd love to ask as a quick follow up. How big of a role really is media or social media optimization when it comes to getting more responses or feedback from your constituents in Quezon City?
I think the pandemic hastened the process no, yung switch natin to online medyo napabilis talaga, no? So all the services that Quezon City offers right now, lahat nga, no, e-services, even paying your building permit, no, even applying for a business permit can be online now, no? So malaki yung factor niya, and in talagang process ng mga information mabilis talaga sa social media in the digital world, no? But the challenge actually is this, no, yung on ground, no, the communities where internet is slow, no, meron pa rin ganoon sa Quezon City, no, meron pa rin mga barangays na slow yung internet or mababa yung internet penetration. So while we already have about considering, no, 3 million ang population ng QC, we have about 850 plus followers in FB, no, so that's about more like a third, no, of the population is already following us on that's a good measure na, no, maganda na yon, no. So maganda ng penetration rate yon. But however, ang napapansin lang namin, some people on the ground still don't know much about government projects, no, lalo na doon sa mga so-called yung mga areas na medyo may hirap, no, in the class D, class E sections na barangays, no, the likes of Payatas, areas in Bagong Silangan, yung medyo talaga may hirap na barangays. Those are areas which, no, need really on ground presence. Baka dun yung hybrid na yung kailangan, no, na apart from social media, there should be barangay help in disseminating information.
Thank you, Sir Engelbert. I think that's a good insight coming from the fact that, okay, we have a follow-up here from Ma'am Berlin. Yes, ma'am.
Just to add to what Sir Bert said in relation also to utilizing social media and online services, I think the important note to take here is accountability also from your citizens or your clients, and not just your public leaders. Because in e-services account, for example, kailangan meron kang, you have to have a personal account with your information so that the government can track the services that have been provided to you. Because nowadays, it's very easy to create troll accounts. It's very easy to spam messages in email as well. So in implementing digital democracy moving forward, I hope that is also one thing that we keep in mind. Now, we also hold our citizens and our clients accountable for the requests, for the services that they apply for. And I hope that moving forward, no, magkaroon tayo ng better systems to implement this in our online services. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I love the insights, because coming from Sir Engelbert, it just goes to show that while the predominance of Facebook is still there, and probably the other social media platforms, there really needs to be a congruence with what can be accessed by the general public. And although some might be able to access social media, but to what extent? Maybe pure text only, or probably just up to a photo and not those long probably tutorial videos. So the type of content that you generate also will matter. And I agree definitely with Ma'am Berlin, focusing more on educating also your citizens on how they can responsibly use these e-services or use digital democracy tools to roll it out. Absolutely wonderful. We have here, I think her audio is not working quite well, but I'll read to you all the responses in case you aren't able to read in the chat box. From Abigail Garcia from the BPLO of Muntinlupa. She says that I would like to share our practices here in BPLO Muntinlupa. We have established a few platforms to communicate to our clients. So first is the very well used FB page and email, and have also on-site and online feedback mechanism platforms. We have a call center wherein after a day of transacting with our offices, a designated staff calls the client and interviews him about the experiences in the office. Wow, very thorough. Through the feedbacks we received, we were able to address certain concerns raised by our clients. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much. I think that's a bit of more than enough manifestation that the use of good governance principles and good e-governance principles can yield very good results for the general public. So thank you very much for sharing. Let's jump back into our discussions, all right? Because we actually have quite a lot of things to share with you in preparation for your sessions tomorrow, okay? So let's jump into it. I hope you can all still see my screen. So again, very quick reminder, these are our stakeholders, right? And this is the sphere of influence that we hope to work with from the academe, private sector, CSO, and our public authority. And you can see here a digital democracy officer, right? So I hope you can all still see my sides. So we have to also, before we go to this, I'd love to do a very quick rundown of what you were able to retain, because I know that a bit of time has already passed since the last time that we discussed a plan and all of its details. So I probably would love to check what you remember, all right? So let's jump into it a very quick bit. So again, we asked you this a while ago. So now let's go to this. The following statements are true regarding digital democracy, except, right? So we described digital democracy a while ago. What are your thoughts? Except, a giant term here is except. So everything else is correct except one. So let's do a quick check. So please plug in your responses. So if you're unable to jump back into it, so go to menti.com and this is the code 28726205. Okay, so we're seeing the responses. Okay, so a vast majority, runaway winner, vast majority were able to take note of our key line a while ago that it does not aim to replace traditional or face-to-face consultations. It seeks to complement it. So kudos to everyone who got it right. So I think a couple of our participants got caught by the term except, right? Because in general, digital democracy tools should not replace, but primarily complement. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's jump into probably the next question. So I showed you a plan, right? The A plan when you're creating a roadmap. So why do you think it's important? What is the value of creating a roadmap? So the thing here is there's that except, right? So we saw here some responses from our friends from Muntinlupa, from Quezon City. So what is it about building a digital roadmap that's important? Except, right? So we're seeing some responses here. It looks like there appears to be a runaway winner again, and the fact that it is supposed to be not time consuming and may incur cost. Yes, that part is true. It may incur cost in terms of the implementation, but in terms of planning, hopefully very minimal. But in terms of the time consuming part, it's supposed to actually help you save time, right? It says here, defines the objectives, outcomes, and milestones of the Digital Democracy Initiative. It allows an LGU to share their expectations with their stakeholders. Yeah, in general. So it says here, it is not supposed to be time consuming, right? That's the key factor here, right? So let's look into the next one. Okay, this is where we're gonna go here. Special bodies, right? So These are the special bodies that you need to take into consideration when creating your digital democracy plans and or programs. So first, your LDCs. I'm quite sure you're all familiar with LDCs, your local development councils. Some have a lot of private sector representatives there. Your local health board, especially if you're dealing with anything and everything related to health, very active during the pandemic. Your local school board and your local peace and order councils, right? And then, apart from them, you also have to have a digital democracy officer. And the digital democracy officer is actually quite important because this individual is able to coordinate your efforts moving forward, or your DDO, right? That's the short term for that one. So the digital democracy officer, particularly in local government or regional government, in order to coordinate and conduct all your e-consultations, data analysis, and presentations, when it comes to all of your efforts for digital democracy. So they also highly ensure the integration of cost-cutting issues across topics such as gender and sensitivity and diversity, amongst others. And they are your key representative or key focal point. So if I were an LGU, my go-to digital democracy officer would be those who attended this learning session, because you are already now going to be a bit relatively more familiar when it comes to all of these concepts. So from performing research and data collection to reviewing, designing, and implementing these digital democracy projects to actually delivering the methodologies and tools that the LGU needs to communicating the tasks and even monitoring compliance, all of these are being done by the digital democracy officer. Very, very important for us to have. So I'll flash it here. What are the DDO's responsibilities? So hopefully you can take a quick snapshot, because this might be your end job description in the future, right? Probably if the government or your LGU sees the value of this, and hopefully they'll be seeking for your assistance, for your expertise, for your help. And that's really the purpose of this training program. So again, take some time to do a quick snapshot. This one, before we move on to our next one. Okay, so again, let's go back to our Mentimeter and let's see if you can recall what the special bodies, first, those two topics, the special bodies that may be instrumental in digital democracy initiatives. So we're seeing that of all of them, so we gave you the chance to send in some responses. The most dominant ones, LDC, LHB, and LSB, right? Not a lot consulting with their other councils, but yeah, very, very prominent here, at least the LDCs, LHBs, and LSBs. So thank you very much for responding to that. We will actually give you probably about 5 more seconds just to see. All right, great. So very easily identifiable. Local Development Council, local school board, great. Thank you. It just shows that you're very much listening to our discussion. Right, now let's jump to our next question. Okay, so our next question is this. The following are the specific roles of the digital democracy officer, except. So maybe your future role, probably as a trained digital democracy champion. So which might not be your job? Collect data, design the project, acquire the resources, and support the democracy initiative. Or are all of these tasks for the DDO? Right? Let's keep the responses going. Right? Don't be afraid to answer differently if you feel like that's your answer. Again, this is all a learning process for us. Please feel free to share with us your thoughts. So great. Okay, so we're seeing a relatively runaway winner. All of the tasks are part of the DDO's job description. So yeah, actually the truth of the matter is that's true. But one of the things maybe that might be making people choose the next one, which is acquire resources to support. Don't worry, it shouldn't be your personal resources, or you shouldn't be focused primarily on fundraising for the rollout of the programs. It's really more about the coordination, the budget planning, And we'll get to that in just a little bit. All right. So thank you again for your responses. Let's jump into this next part. Okay. So let me just flash that back again. Right. So all of these are currently the tools being used by government for digital democracy. So you have those that you're using for holding meetings online. Then you have those that you're using for process surveys. So you have your Polis, your Google form. Actually, you use the Google form in sending out your responses for a pretest. You have your cloud servers. If you want to visualize data, you have the likes of what we're using right now, which is Mentimeter. You also have Tableau and even Excel, right? You don't even have to spend a lot. And for those that are a little bit more advanced, you can use coding languages, Python, among others. For us, at least within the digital startup world, we're now using other coding languages for your React Native, your Node.js, etc. But you don't need to know that, especially because that's a little bit more technical for the developer side. But these are just some of the tools that you can use. We're using one right now, Zoom. Another alternative is Google Meet. And for those that are still using the ones that are part of their large government plans, you can use Skype as well. Okay, so before I move on, I'd love to do a quick check again. Which one are you using? Of all of those four, which one are you using the most in your LGU? And maybe we can ask probably some of you to share, especially if you have a selection that's not usually selected. So we see here a lot really are using primarily online meetings and events. To the one person that says visualize and analyze data, sir or ma'am, can you tell us more? Which one do you use? If you are unable to unmute your microphone, probably you can send it via chat box. So I'd love to know what in particular you use for visualizing and analyzing data. Because we had a couple of options a while ago. You have your Mentimeter, as mentioned. You have your Tableau. So, oh, now we have two. So I'd love to know, okay, we have one for create and process survey. So I'd love to know these individuals, the ones who said visualize and analyze data and create and process survey. Could you tell us, if not unmuting your audio, maybe in the chat box? What do you use or what platforms do you use? Okay, we'll give you a few moments. Okay, so now we have two of each. Great. So calling on our respondents who were the ones who answered these, create and process survey and visualize and analyze data, so that maybe we can share to our fellow attendees other platforms that they can consider. Are you using Tableau? Are you using Polis? Are you using Google Form? What's your primary go-to application? Let's have a quick check. Anyone?
Dr. Dex, we have Mary Jane Sellen from the LGU of Calauan, that she said that they use Excel.
Great. Then we also have Sir Marvi Eustaquio. Sorry, I hope I pronounced that correctly. From Quezon City, we use GIS software to create maps and conduct spatial analysis data. Wow, that's quite advanced already. So thank you for that. That's very insightful. Really investing a lot on data management and data visualization. That would be very important, more so when you're dealing with rapid response units. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you. Let's jump into the next part. Right. Okay. So we are now actually nearing the very end of our training program. So of course, when we're talking about all of these big plans, we have to have our budgetary considerations. So of course, you have to look at what the LGU has first, right? What are the key offices that you need to collaborate with, the existing personnel with the expertise. So now that you're undergoing this program, you are now going to be part of this expert pool. And then, of course, existing resources, whether it would be an existing subscription or one of the limiting factors I believe that LGUs are taking into account is that when they've already subscribed to a previous service and a previous e-platform service or tool, they have a hard time shifting, right? And it will take some bridging time. So you really need to plan. There's actually a process, a deeper, longer process that will assist you in transitioning modalities, especially when it comes to electronic tools. Maybe we can guide you with that in future sessions. But apart from those, you have to now have your budget allocations because the fiscal year has to be planned a year ahead for approval and for planning. I'm sure you're a lot familiar with. It'll allow you to procure more goods, probably assign funding for more personnel, and then if that is something that has some limitations, this is where the magic of that stakeholder analysis will come in. Wherein you can collaborate with NGOs and CSOs to bring in more manpower and probably some additional technical expertise, as well as the research extension component with the academe. I believe this was done by the Quezon City local government during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, collaborating with the UP Diliman with a lot of the information gathering and management of their programs. So, and of course, some grants and resources from international organizations, those would definitely be a plus. And of course, working with the private sector, that's why MBC is here and that's why KAS is here as well, collaborating with you to push forward digital democracy. So we can provide you with the guidance and technical expertise to adjunct your needs in government as well. So let's jump into the next part. We'll show you the process. So first you have your budget preparation, then you have to legislate it. That's going to take some time, approval from the councils, to the eventual execution. Then hopefully, as mentioned in your good governance standards, transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. So thank you for mentioning those a while ago and reaffirming them here today. Okay, so let's look into the next part. This one, I hope you can take a quick snapshot of, but don't worry, this is going to be part of the handouts and digital tools that we'll be sending to you, so that you can immediately map out what you would need. So this is your basic action plan template. So your plan for consultation, your creation of the questionnaire in terms of the components, how you're going to be collecting the feedback, as well as the way that you're going to be analyzing the results. Because some you can actually ask a third party to generate a lot of the insights. And for some, it can be just in-house. Then the presentation of results. Because here's the thing, data is just random raw information that's been collected. In order for it to become useful information, you have to present it in a way that is relevant to people, right? So they can all just be random numbers. How you present it would have a major impact. And of course, close that feedback loop in preparation for the next part. So hopefully this can assist you, not only in terms of the resources you need, but also for the people, the timeline, and expected targets. Okay, right. So you'll actually be jumping into a Jamboard and Miro board in just a bit. But before that happens, I'd love to highlight some key facts that you have to take into account, particularly the Data Privacy Act. So I just have to highlight this a little bit because we're talking about data and digital information. So again, the Data Privacy Act of 2012 focuses more on the capacity of people to control, collect, and handle data. So to make it easier for you, these are the segments of data privacy that you need to look into. So we made it simple. It's just consent, relevance, access, and limits. Okay, consent meaning that the user consented to having his or her data collected. Relevance meaning, are you just asking what is important? Like for example, if age, if gender, if occupation, if civil status, if educational attainment are not relevant to what you're collecting about, why ask, right? That is very important, a very important segment that sometimes gets left behind. Only ask what is needed or what is required. And you have to be able to justify why you are collecting that specific data in order for it to be qualifiable as a collected data. And then, of course, access. And when we talk about access, we talk about who has access to the data. Is it just the main collector, just one person? Or is it now all of the members of a particular board, or probably the whole of the LGU? Who in particular has access to your data on a personal level or in an aggregated way? And then, of course, you have your limits, meaning what will you use my data for, right? Because this is something that you might have noticed. Where in the past few weeks or months, you've been receiving random text messages offering you jobs that you've been pre-qualified, or that you have been able to get a discount of a loan, etc., that you don't remember applying for. So now you have this inkling in your mind, who was able to access my data, and are they using it for something else, right? So this is why we have to put focus on consent, the relevance of the data, and then who accesses it, and the limits, the parameters, right? Okay. So let's jump very quickly to Mentimeter, just so that you can let us know. So very good affirmation of the last one. Okay, so here, can you name me 3 tools, just so that we can go back and remember something? Can you name me 3 tools that you can use for digital democracy? You can tell me in terms of examples, you can tell me in terms of classifications, whether it is for a purpose of meeting or data collection, up to you. Just so that we can have the predominant ones. Name 3 tools that can be used in implementing digital democracy, right? No right or wrong answer. So we're seeing here online meetings and events, visualize data, seeing specific examples, Zoom, Google Forms, Excel. Right, again, no right or wrong answers. Please feel free to send in your answers just so that we can share. So if ever you have similarities with a fellow LGU, it'll be easier to coordinate. Okay, it looks like Google Forms is a major data collecting tool being used. And of course, Zoom, we're using one right now. Okay, so Google Forms and Zoom are being our runaway winners. Okay, interesting. And then we're seeing here catching up, analyzing data. I think that's a very important thing to look into. Analyze data, Excel, right? Okay. Okay, great. So we finally have there Google Forms, Zoom, Excel. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you for your responses. Now let's look into the very next question that we have. What is the
Dr.
most
Dex?
important part of data privacy?
Hi, Dr. Dex. Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Apostol from Quezon City has a comment. He said that there's a concern with Google Form regarding the data privacy issue.
Ah, yes.
May I ask you to clarify, Mr. Apostol?
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, because it's actually anyone can access it and actually can copy it, and it really exposes your data also to others. That's the concern.
Yes. Actually, sir, what we are here to help you with is to create the policies in order to make sure that that does not happen, right? Because in government, we have the authority to create processes that would limit who has access to particular accounts, and also at the same time who has the line authority whenever there is a problem, who would be the immediate superior to supervise. And also the protocols. To some extent, there are some LGUs that identify which digital tool to use. So even the use of that digital tool is laid out in their social media policy or their digital tool policy. And that is something that we can hopefully help you with through our workshops, through our group sessions in this call. And I do agree, if you are unable to tweak properly the settings of Google Form, and then if anyone has access to the signed up account of that particular data collection entity, that really has a major impact. And that's why for the data privacy one, we had to highlight the notion of not only the consent on the side of the user, but also who has access. Like who has access to the data collected, and the policies that we will be implementing will have a huge role in that. But very, very valid concern. Thank you very much, Sir Engelwood, for raising that up. So it looks here that the most important part of data privacy for a vast majority is consent. But I like here that there has now been additional 2 people wanting to emphasize access of authorized individuals to data. That's good. Because the truth of the matter is, they're all important. They're all equally important. From the consent to the relevance, you don't ask things that you don't need, and then access and even the limits of the data. Don't use the data for something else. Very, very good. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for the insights, Sir Engelbert. So again, these are the challenges. Sometimes there's limited access, the cost. Again, transferring from one platform to another can be costly. Does the tech exist? And can people trust the platform? Right now, there are lots of questions about trust on Facebook using your data. Same goes as mentioned by Sir Engelbert. Sometimes when they're using Google Form, they are unsure whether there is data breach or probably a data collection or data privacy issue. And that's why the notion of security has to be highlighted even more. So again, very real world, real life experiences that are happening. So let me just highlight quickly that all of these will have an impact to the quality of democracy that we have, the quality of participation from the public, and of course, quality of governance as a whole. So we actually have different dimensions from the space. Actually, we'll be giving you a snapshot of this one and in your learning guides, but in general, we'll cluster them into things that you can look into. So the first dimension would be your space, followed by your engagement, primarily focusing more on how you interact with the general public. Don't worry, we'll be sending you this one because these include the questions that you will be asking, right? And maybe we'll use this, take note of this please, because we'll be using this also in the breakout sessions and workshops in the succeeding day. And then the last dimension would be the outcomes. So what are the questions that you need to ask to hit, for example, program results or citizen satisfaction? So we'll factor all of these questions in as well, right? So at the same time, you also have to have your evaluation, you have your qualitative, quantitative methods without being too academic or technical. This is what we have, focusing more on the types of interviews that you will conduct, how you're able to conduct your online questionnaire, because of course you have to have that data privacy notice, the consent lines, etc. Will provide you with more guidance with that, especially during the workshops. And again, very quick Mentimeter. Let's just look into this very quickly. Just some more questions. In creating the survey questions, just very quickly, when you collect data, what do you believe should be considered as the most important? Right, very, very fast. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So hopefully everyone concurs, avoiding technical jargon. Thank you very much. Okay. And probably we'll skip this part just so that we'll find out more about how you're working with government. So okay, we'll jump into this possibly tomorrow just so that we can profile you. So of all of our content has been given for today. So before we jump into our Q&A session, we'd love to get some quick feedback from all of you. How did you have fun, or did you have fun in our learning session today? And hopefully we can continue answering your questions in just a little bit. So we'll keep this on and we'll be now opening our floor for questions from the audience before jumping into some quick reminders. Right. So great. Any questions from the general topics that we discussed, or about the general topics that we discussed? from our participants. And again, thank you very much for sharing with us. And we have some comments here. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. MBC is very happy to assist you with this digital democracy project. Same goes with KAS and of course Experto Play Labs. Right. So any questions that you would like to raise before we jump into our reminders? It looks like we'll just move a lot of our training workshops for purely tomorrow. Yes, the presentation, I believe, Ms. Gita, we can provide them with a copy of the presentation, but do not fret because these are also included. Probably a more detailed and robust discussion is available as part of your pre-session guide and even the actual digital democracy handbook that is made available by MBC, right? And it's actually another thing that we hope to share. We are just here to help facilitate your learning, but all of this is actually going to be made available to you by our dear friends from MBC. So we have here our questions from Berlin Tinonas. How do you address concerns or complaints wherein sources are anonymous? This may be answered today or tomorrow. So great, thank you for that question. And can our MIS rep join the session tomorrow? I'm not sure they registered to this. I think we can coordinate with our friends from MBC on how that can happen. Please send us or shoot us an email, or you can message us or Ms. Gita or the rest of the MBC team in order to have that. Okay, so a hand is raised. Go ahead, Ma'am Berlin.
Hello again. Just to provide a bit of background regarding my question. No, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the CMS program recently launched by the Anti-Red Tape Authority. So we attended the rollout of the complaints management system that was recently launched by the Anti-Red Tape Authority, and it actually enables all citizens from the Philippines via mobile app to send complaints regarding whether it's for the LGU or for the national government about anything, any complaint under the sun. However, the problem here is that these complaints don't necessarily have to come from verified profiles. So what CMS will do is that they will direct the complaints directly to the LGUs, and then it's up to us on how we will handle it. However, the problem here is how do we address a concern without knowing who the person, who is the person who sent that complaint, where is that person coming from, and what is the situation of that person. So perhaps that could be something that you could give us tips in terms of policy making, or perhaps a better framework or program that we may implement moving forward while we face this new program implemented by ARTA. That's it. Thank you very much.
Great, that is a wonderful and actually very timely question in light of that new program rolled out. This is why we're having this session, exactly why we're having this session. Because now you know what you need to ask and you need to demand from the ones pushing for the rollout of that particular program. The LGUs can give feedback to the national government regarding how you will be able to handle such complaints. So that would be done on two phases. First, you need to be able to address it from a policy perspective, asking those that are in charge, probably the national government, regarding your need to get and collect specific pieces of information, specific data for you to be able to adequately respond to the concerns. They can remain to some extent anonymous, right? However, you would need to be able to contextualize what the complaint is or what the concern is. So you might need a little bit more information than just a general description of the event, or probably at least they can contact a reference number, or at the very least create a policy that would require them to find a way to be contacted. That is on the policy side. In terms of the immediate response to it, this is something that even up to this day, especially with anonymous calls, or probably those that receive anonymous tips, even in the United States, their 911 call hotline still receives quite a lot of anonymous and or prank calls, right? In light of it being an open gateway to government. One of the mechanisms that we can do, and I believe this was also attempted in the Philippines in the past when we launched the 117 initiative, wherein it will be very important to educate really the public as to what the purpose of that platform is or what it should be used for. And that will entail a lot of campaigning in coordination with the local government through your barangays, through your community leaders, in order to ensure that the proper information is being collected there. And probably, and this time, this is going to be policy again, policy side, wherein when you roll the program out, especially from the national government, and you coordinate with the local government unit or probably the barangay level unit that will be responding to it, it would be good to also match the data. See if there has been any complaint of such sorts in the locality, to match such data and or encourage them to have coordination with that local entity in itself, so that the coordination will be synchronous and will be reflective of the final output that you would like to achieve, depending on what that complaint or concern was. But again, we will further discuss this tomorrow through your breakout session, and hopefully we'll be able to assist you in your learning concerns. So thank you very much, and we can't wait for more questions and our sessions tomorrow. Any more before we have our final reminders? Okay, so
Thank you so much
Ms.
for that final question, Ms. Mariano. Dr. Dex, would it be all right if we respond to this tomorrow?
Sure. I
Yeah.
think we can respond to this. We'll take note of this question from Mama Sarah Mariano. Then this can be our opening question, and I think this is a good opening question for tomorrow: how to encourage our clients and senior citizens to use e-platforms if they have concerns. So thank you for sending that in. Thank you very much, and I'll now turn you over to Dr. Villarderos for some quick reminders for tomorrow.
Hi, good morning. I'm actually also in Switzerland, no? So everything is going to be delayed during our timeline, but we will hope to be able to give you the service that you need, especially with this training series. Just some quick reminders on our end. We are supposed to have a breakout session. We will be sending you your group list. No? So that will be your permanent grouping for the entire workshop for tomorrow. I'll be your facilitator. You'll be seeing more of me tomorrow. So pahinga na muna si Doc Dex, no? And then we just have some instructions. No? We will be having a how might we challenge at the start of our session. So this will entail a lot of brainstorming. You will also get to know your group mates. You will also get to find new friends, colleagues, people that you can work with in the future for different digital democracy initiatives. And also, we will be using what your output there will be, no, to answer the question, no, answer this challenge. Using digital democracy initiatives, how might we blank, no? So you are to fill that that blank, no, before we begin the workshop tomorrow. So we will be sending it. Our friends from MBC will be coordinating with you regarding your group members, your group mates. So maybe if you want to contact them ahead of time, you may do so. And we'll be seeing all of you tomorrow, and we have planned a fruitful and exciting day ahead of us. So thank you very much, Makati Business Club, for this. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Gita.
Thank you, Dr. Vaya. Thank you, everyone, for your enthusiastic participation today. In our day one of the digital democracy technology for decision-making and community building. Today's event has highlighted the importance of reviewing our own LGUs and determining at which areas we can support and augment our consultation process with online tools. Looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow for day two, where we will focus on creating our own action plans to implement digital democracy in your cities. I'd like to request everyone to please log in early, at least 5 minutes ahead of time, so that we can address any technical issues you may have and so that we can place you in your breakout rooms accordingly. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a good day. Hi, Mr. Isaiah. The evaluation form will be shared tomorrow.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Doc.
Thank you very much.
Matulog na kayo, magigising pa lang. Ano ba?
Actually, we are about to jump into another meeting and
Oh
then
my
we have
God.
to go to International Trade Center, right, Doc Dex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but we're very happy to be joining you.
Have a good
and
day.
the
Don't be a zombie tomorrow.
We'll try not to. Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.